Mkhuleko, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. So this is a big responsibility that you're about to take on. Were you surprised to even hear that you were considered?
Thank you, Archibald, and to the viewers. Well, indeed, it is a big surprise and a big responsibility, one which the IFP does not take lightly, and I believe that they had a vast array of members of parliament who were competent, who could have actually done the job, and therefore I'm humbled by the responsibility, and no doubt I can assure South Africans that their trust has not been misplaced, and I believe that as a team of Scopa will be able to actually do the work within the parameters of parliamentary rules and within the confines of the Constitution and the PFMA and other relevant National Treasury regulations which guide our work. And of course, we are going to extend our scope of work to ensure that we foster stronger and better working relations with Auditor General and the law enforcement agencies to ensure that we deal with all the matters that will come before us in a manner that inspires confidence and one which actually yields the necessary consequences.
You are a young South African, 32 years old. A lot of people, in welcoming the news of you moving to this position, have made note of the fact that you are a young man, and some wanting to know how that factor is going to influence how you lead such a crucial portfolio.
Well, I'm not new to the politics of ageism. When I arrived in Parliament at a tender age of 24, in 2012, there were such questions, and I think that over the past 7 years, one has worked hard to ensure that we push back on the frontiers of ageism and to ensure that we open up spaces for other young people. And therefore, I take these responsibilities with the parliamentary professionalism with which they require. And most importantly, of course, is that this is not just a Mkhuleko committee, but I'll be working with competent members of parliament from across the political spectrum, all of us pursuing the ideals of good governance and ensuring that we take care of the public purse. And so if that is something subjected to age, it would be unfortunate. But what is real is that the challenges before us are in the main confronting young people whom bear the brutal brunt of high unemployment, poverty, inequality, and other ones pushing for the access to education and other social services. And therefore, I don't think it's misplaced to give this opportunity to a young person who, in the main, would be best suited to understand the collective needs and realities of young people. Therefore, I see my age as a strength and not a weakness.
One of the people who has reacted to the news of you becoming Scopa chairperson is the UDM leader, Bantu Holomisa, a veteran of Parliament. He says, he congratulates you, and then he says, turn Scopa to be an effective tool, not just a talk shop where its resolutions are ignored by state departments. How will you do that in particular?
Well, I think we must first acknowledge the fact that Scopa, particularly in the Fifth Parliament, what we tried to do was to lay a new foundation for accountability and oversight. And in the main, we successfully did that. And the Sixth Parliament is for us to now extend our reach and to ensure that the House actually takes seriously the recommendations of Scopa, and for Scopa itself to actually hold before it the people who are meant to fulfill those resolutions. So a no-nonsense approach is going to be the order of the day. I certainly would not want a situation where we are a talk shop, and I can at the outset now off the bat say that anybody found at the receiving end of incompetence and having been the drivers of the collapse of state institutions and government departments will see themselves taken by us to law enforcement agencies. We are going to make sure that the permanent representatives of the Hawks, of the NPA, make it a point that the work that we do is not in vain. So this is going to be a new era of accountability. It's going to be a new era of implementation. And what I can really say is that DGs in the main, who are the accounting officers, will be well served to make sure that they get their work right and avoid a situation of having to come before Scopa. I think the time for talking is over, and I think the experience one has had in Scopa for the past 5 years tells us that the parliamentary machinery, if used effectively and efficiently, is able to fulfill what it is that is the collective expectations of our people. So I can say without any fear of contradiction that the work of Scopa will receive the necessary seriousness that it deserves, because we as Scopa at the outset will be taking ourselves very seriously.
So some of the reports that came out ahead of the official announcement that you would become a Scopa chairperson, the Mail and Guardian in particular was reporting that you, or the IFP at least, would be offered the seat by the ANC as some sort of an effort to sweeten a coalition discussion negotiation that's apparently going on between the two parties. Is that what's gone on here?
Nothing could be further from the truth. I've never heard a bigger load of hogwash than what has been articulated there. I think you will recall, Tembe, and the viewers, that consistent with the traditions of accountability and oversight, Scopa has always been offered to the opposition, and the IFP has previously actually chaired Scopa, so this is not a new phenomenon. And you will, as you indicated, I'm one of the only two returning members of Scopa actually in this sixth parliament. So you will also consider the factors of continuity and to ensure that we do not lose the momentum and the stride of the fifth parliament, because there are pressing matters which will need us to focus on them. Off the bat is the issue of Eskom, SABC, SAA, and all the other state-owned entities who are under distress at this point in time. And so it would have been foolhardy for anybody to want to deviate from the prescripts of continuity, and I most certainly will make a case to my colleagues in Scopa that we prioritize these state-owned entities and that they are the first ones to actually appear before us so we can be able to receive turnaround strategies. You'll even recall last night President announcing that Eskom would be receiving a bailout. And so we really need to get to the bottom of that. We need Treasury to come and explain these issues before us, and the Department of Public Enterprises. Therefore, then to want to muddy the waters with street talk which is unfounded would be very reckless and irresponsible, because it takes away from the noble ideals which underpinned this discussion between the two parties. And it is that reason why the IFP accepted it, because we believed that we've got a role to play. So there's no other consideration other than the considerations of good governance in this regard.
But do you have an appreciation then, Nkulego, speaking to us here tonight, of the scrutiny that's going to befall the IEC's votes in matters that come before the National Assembly? Because the person who previously occupied the role of Scopa chairperson, Themba Godi from the APC, was often criticized by some for apparently towing the ANC line as some sort of a gratitude, if you will, for this role. So do you appreciate the fact that people will now be watching very closely how the IFP may or may not vote with the ANC as the various bills and that sort of thing come before Parliament?
Well, look, we are committed as the IFP to constructive opposition, and as Prince Buthelezi indicated when President Ramaphosa was elected in the House in late May, that where the President and government do the right thing, we'll support them, and where they don't, they will not have our support. That has been our modus operandi as the IFP time immemorial, and you're not going to deviate from that. If there's a perception out there that Scopa, when offered to an opposition, creates an extension of the ANC, that would be very unfortunate. But what I can assure you is that it's not the case with the IFP. And we have accepted this position with a very clear understanding that the IFP will maintain its independence, its own outlook, and will take decisions consistent with our own IFP constitution, policy and values. And we will, as we have done previously, look at each issue coming before the House on the merits and demerits with which it comes with. And therefore, we're not taking a mandate from anybody else other than from the IFP members and the structures and from our own value system. So the IFP is not an extension of the ANC, and certainly any alluding to that would be a misreading of the political situation. The fact that the seat is offered to an opposition is to maintain and create a healthy system of checks and balances within the parliamentary process. Now, it would be ignorant and stupid, to say the very least, to then want to create an extension of yourself, but at the same time try and build in checks and balance. And the IFP will certainly not buckle under the pressures of anyone who would want to force us in that regard. And I think the ANC understands that very well.
Nkulego Hlekwa, IFP spokesperson.